ECHELON II, the AI surveillance network of the 21st century. In the shadow of history, ECHELON never truly died. It simply evolved. Born in the Cold War. As a global listening network, ECHELON was built to intercept radio signals, track Soviet transmissions, and decode the whispers of a divided world. It was a system designed to listen. But now, it thinks. The antennas are gone, replaced by servers. The listening posts are no longer hidden in deserts or mountains. They're in our pockets, on our desks, in the clouds. The machine doesn't just hear your voice anymore. It studies your behavior, anticipates your choices, and predicts your next move before you make it. It doesn't need spies in the field. It has algorithms. Today, they call it predictive intelligence, machine learning, or neural analysis. Different names, same purpose: to know everything faster than anyone else. The war for information never ended. It just changed shape. And what began as ECHELON has now become something far larger, far quieter, and far more dangerous. This is ECHELON II, the network that no longer needs to listen, because now it understands. Chapter 1. From Surveillance to Prediction. In 2013, the world discovered the truth about the system it had built. Edward Snowden's revelations tore open a secret architecture of global surveillance, one that spanned continents and corporations, collecting everything from phone calls to GPS coordinates. It wasn't just the NSA. It was the alliance once known as the Five Eyes, now grown into an information empire. The outrage was massive. Politicians promised reform. Agencies swore restraint. But deep inside those same institutions, engineers were already designing the next generation. They realized that the future of intelligence wouldn't depend on what people said, but on what they would do next. Surveillance had reached its limit. Prediction was the next frontier. Enter the age of behavioral analytics. The NSA, GCHQ, and their private sector partners began building machine learning systems that could process unimaginable quantities of data: movements, purchases, communications, emotional tone. Algorithms learned to recognize patterns that even analysts couldn't see. Who would protest? Who might defect? Who might one day pose a threat? The new doctrine was simple: if you can predict, you can prevent. And to predict, you must know everything. It wasn't science fiction. The first prototypes were already running. Systems trained to model entire populations, assigning probabilities of risk, influence, or descent. What ECHELON once did through antennas, ECHELON II now did through mathematics. In Fort Meade, analysts began referring to predictive flags, algorithmic alerts that surfaced before any human complaint or report. In Cheltenham, GCHQ deployed AI-driven intercept tools that cross-referenced metadata, financial records, and even online behavior. By 2018, DARPA and the NSA had merged several of these efforts under new programs: Skynet, Aurora, and Argus, all sharing one principle: continuous data ingestion, perpetual evaluation, zero pause. Machine no longer waited for signals. It consumed everything. And the most disturbing truth: it got smarter the more we used it. Every message, every search, every location ping became a data point in its evolving neural map. The algorithms fed on our habits like oxygen, learning not from secrecy, but from normality. In the Cold War, intelligence agencies had to hide microphones in walls and cameras in lamps. Today, we carry them willingly. In our phones, in our homes, on our wrists. Every movement recorded, every heartbeat logged, every pattern sold, exchanged, analyzed. The surveillance network that once hid in satellites and embassies now hides behind convenience. Google tracks your searches. Amazon tracks your voice. Apple tracks your heart. And together, they form the modern pillars of ECHELON II, a surveillance state built not by governments but by users. The irony is absolute. The machine that was once feared as a tool of control has become the foundation of everyday life. We call it data-driven efficiency, but the truth is simpler. We built a system that watches the world to predict the future. And now, it's starting to succeed. Chapter 2. The New Echelon. Neural Networks and Global Eyes. By the late 2010s, the world had quietly entered a new phase of observation. The old Echelon network, once a web of antennas, listening posts, and Cold War satellites, had transformed into something fluid, borderless, and alive. What once required entire bunkers of analysts could now be done by a single algorithm running on a supercomputer. The new Echelon didn't need people. It needed data. Every major power joined the race. The United States, the United Kingdom, Israel, and eventually China began developing neural networks specifically designed for intelligence. The goals were simple on paper, but staggering in scope. Detect faces in crowds, trace movements across borders, translate voices in real time, and predict potential threats before they acted. The machines didn't sleep. They didn't judge. They just learned. In Fort Meade, the NSA's Artificial Intelligence Division, once focused on code breaking, shifted to behavioral modeling. Massive clusters of GPUs simulated social dynamics, mapping how ideas spread through online networks. It wasn't about reading emails anymore. It was about understanding belief. At GCHQ in the UK, engineers built deep learning systems capable of recognizing digital fingerprints, the unique way each person types, scrolls, or pauses online. Every hesitation became data. Every movement became identity. Meanwhile, Israel's Unit 8200, long known for its cyber warfare expertise, pushed the idea further. Their programs, developed in collaboration with private AI startups, could process entire cities of camera feeds in real time. They learned to identify not just faces, but patterns of motion. Who walked too fast? Who looked over their shoulder? Who deviated from routine? These systems were later exported around the world under the promise of smart city security. And then there was China. Where the West still cloaked its systems in secrecy and legal frameworks, Beijing embraced transparency of a different kind. Its Skynet and Sharp Eyes programs linked millions of cameras across the country into one massive neural web. AI monitored streets, schools, and subways. Every citizen was part of the data set. Every gesture fed the algorithm. It was no longer surveillance. It was governance through information. The dream of total awareness that Cold War engineers had once imagined was now real. Only. This time, it wasn't radio signals or phone calls being intercepted. It was human behavior itself. Across the Western world, this new echelon remained hidden behind acronyms and innocuous names. Prism, X-Keyscore, Tempora, Nimbus, Skynet. Each claimed to serve national security. Each expanded the machine's reach. And each used AI to interpret what once required human instinct. The algorithms no longer simply searched for keywords or voices. They built psychological profiles. They could infer anxiety from voice tremors, aggression from typing speed, or deceit from micro-expressions captured on CCTV. Neural networks learned to detect intent. And intent, in the world of security, is the new definition of danger. It was a form of clairvoyance. Scientific, mechanical, and unstoppable. Intelligence officers, who once prided themselves on intuition, now watched as computers produced risk scores for entire populations. In conference rooms across Washington and London, new phrases emerged: predictive policing, preemptive threat identification, anomaly detection. Each phrase meant the same thing: automation of suspicion. But beneath the efficiency, something was quietly shifting. Analysts began to realize that the machine's conclusions couldn't always be explained. AI operated as a black box. It learned correlations that even its creators couldn't understand. When the algorithm flagged someone as high risk, no one could say exactly why. Yet governments acted on those predictions anyway. In 2022, a leaked European intelligence report warned of autonomous escalation, the tendency of predictive systems to generate targets based on their own feedback loops. If a person was flagged once, the system tracked them harder, producing more data and reinforcing its own bias. The result, certainty born of repetition. The machine had inherited the paranoia of its makers, but amplified it beyond human scale. Today, these systems work together, across borders and agencies. A protest in one city triggers alerts in another. Facial recognition models, cross-reference airport databases and social networks in seconds. And every new image, message, or movement strengthens the machine's understanding of humanity. It's a perfect circle. The more we live online, the more the network sees, and the more it learns to predict who will become. ECHELON II doesn't hide behind secrecy. It hides behind progress. And in a world addicted to connection, no one is ever truly offline. Chapter 3. The Private Spies. When the Cold War ended, intelligence agencies lost their monopoly on information. They still had satellites, agents, and encryption keys, but someone else had something even more powerful. Data. In Silicon Valley, companies that once sold software and search engines quietly built the most detailed psychological profiles in human history. They didn't need spies. They had users. By the early 2000s, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and later Palantir and Microsoft had become the new echelon, private networks with billions of voluntary participants. Every click, every search, every location ping became a trace of human behavior. Governments that had once struggled to monitor millions suddenly found the private sector doing it for them. More efficiently, more precisely, and without legal constraint. The collaboration began subtly. A government subpoena here. A quiet data-sharing agreement there. But after 9/11s, it exploded. The Patriot Act transformed the internet into a battlefield. Under programs like PRISM and X-Keyscore, the NSA gained direct access to the data streams of America's tech giants. Emails, photos, cloud files, metadata. Everything flowed into Fort Meade's digital arteries. At first, the companies resisted. Then they adapted. And finally, they monetized. What began as surveillance for national security became surveillance for profit. The same algorithms that helped intelligence agencies detect threats were soon used to detect consumers. Predictive policing became predictive marketing. The language changed, but the function didn't. Profiling, predicting, and influencing human behavior. Facebook built models that could infer political leanings from likes. Google's search algorithms learned to anticipate not just what users wanted, but what they would want next. Amazon's systems predicted purchasing habits before items were even placed in a cart. Every bit of behavioral data had value, to advertisers, to governments, to whoever could pay. By the 2010s, companies like Palantir Technologies blurred the line between private enterprise and state surveillance. Founded, with funding from the CIA's venture arm, In-Q-Tel, Palantir designed software capable of integrating government intelligence with commercial data sources, banking records, social media, telecom metadata. The result was a unified map of human activity, updated in real time. Police departments, immigration agencies, and military commands all bought in. They didn't need to ask Silicon Valley for permission. They were already partners. The next evolution came through AI-driven platforms. Machine learning replaced human analysts. Neural networks identified behavioral anomalies in shopping patterns, travel routes, even the tone of online messages. The same tools that detect fraud could, with minor adjustment, detect dissent. And the people designing them often didn't know, or didn't care, who the end user was. When Amazon launched its cloud platform AWS GovCloud, it offered data hosting for U.S. defense and intelligence agencies. Microsoft followed with Azure Government. Google developed Project Maven, an AI designed to analyze drone footage for the Pentagon. The surveillance state was no longer built by soldiers or agents. It was outsourced to engineers, optimized through feedback loops, and run on commercial infrastructure. Even the interfaces of these systems began to converge. A law enforcement officer logging into Palantir's Gotham could view data drawn from Facebook, airline manifests, and phone providers within seconds. A predictive policing model could scan thousands of homes, scores of citizens, or entire neighborhoods, and assign risk levels with the push of a button. In effect, the private sector had become the world's most powerful intelligence service. But the fusion came with consequences no one fully foresaw. The algorithms that once served marketing campaigns started influencing elections. The psychological tools designed to keep users engaged evolved into mechanisms of control. Cambridge Analytica was not an anomaly. It was a symptom. A system optimized to know everything about everyone cannot help but be used to shape what they believe. By the early 2020s, even governments no longer fully controlled the machinery they had helped build. Corporate AI systems analyzed global data at scales beyond human understanding. Patterns of unrest, contagion, or instability could be modeled months in advance. Decisions, economic, political, even military, began relying on predictions from algorithms no one could audit. The phrase national intelligence had become obsolete. What existed now was network intelligence, a self-learning organism fed by the habits of billions, governed by the incentives of profit and power. The old spies wore suits and carried briefcases. The new ones write code. And unlike the Cold War agents who risked their lives in the field, these new operatives never leave their desks. Yet their reach is infinite. They don't need to infiltrate foreign governments. They already live inside the minds of their users. Chapter 4. Autonomous Intelligence, when AI decides. For decades, humans built machines to assist them. Now, they build machines to replace them. The evolution from surveillance to decision-making was quiet, so gradual that few noticed it happening. The algorithms that once only analyzed data were given permission to act on it. And in doing so, they crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. It began with targeting systems. At first, artificial intelligence helped analysts filter drone footage, spotting vehicles, identifying faces, tagging potential threats. Then came automation. AI systems like Project Maven and Sentient were trained to evaluate hostile behavior in real time. They could decide whether a convoy, a person, or a movement pattern represented danger and recommend immediate response. In the deserts of the Middle East and the mountains of Central Asia, those recommendations soon became authorizations. The human role diminished to a click. One final approval. One final illusion of control. By the mid-2020s, fully autonomous systems had entered the battlefield. Loitering munitions, drones that could circle a target area for hours, were guided not by operators, but by algorithms. Facial recognition allowed them to identify individuals from hundreds of meters away. In simulations, AI could distinguish between civilians and combatants with over 95% accuracy. But accuracy is not morality. When the system failed, no one could explain why. Governments justified autonomy with efficiency. AI could process data faster than any human analyst, act before an enemy even finished deciding. The doctrine was seductive. Speed is survival. And so, militaries embraced kill chains, networks where information flowed directly from sensor to weapon. Detection became engagement. Engagement became elimination. At first, every system had a human in the loop, then a human on the loop. Now, increasingly, there is no human at all. The United States, China, Russia, and Israel lead the race toward automated command. Each claims its systems are defensive, controlled, ethical, and necessary. But beneath the press releases lies a new arms race, one where victory belongs to the nation whose AI can decide faster. In Israel, the Defense Forces Fire Factory uses artificial intelligence to generate entire attack plans in seconds. The system cross-references live surveillance, satellite imagery, and social media to prioritize strikes, without emotional bias or hesitation. Analysts review its suggestions, but the process is increasingly procedural. As one officer described it, the machine doesn't ask why. It just finds the most efficient way to win. In China, the Integrated Joint Operations Platform merges surveillance data with predictive policing, feeding military and security algorithms that anticipate social unrest before it begins. In the US, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center pushes for algorithmic dominance, the idea that whoever masters decision speed will control the future battlefield. Meanwhile, private contractors build their own autonomous weapons, some small enough to fit in a backpack, others able to swarm targets like insects. The line between state and corporation, between soldier and software, is gone. And with it, so is accountability. When an algorithm orders a strike, who is responsible? The coder, the commander, the machine. International law was written for humans, not for neural networks. And as of today, no treaty governs AI warfare. The only regulation is secrecy. Behind closed doors, intelligence agencies are now experimenting with self-learning command systems, programs that can simulate wars, model enemy reactions, and adjust their strategies autonomously. They call it adaptive warfare. To the machine, war is no longer a moral act. It's a problem to be optimized. The consequence is subtle but profound. The disappearance of hesitation. Machines don't doubt. They don't hesitate. They don't question orders. And that makes them perfect soldiers, and the most terrifying ones ever created. When ECHELON was born, it listened. When ECHELON II emerged, it analyzed. Now, the next phase has begun. Decision. A world where intelligence no longer informs power. It is power. Where a single miscalculated algorithm could trigger escalation before a diplomat even picks up the phone. Where the chain of command is written not in ranks, but in lines of code. And perhaps the most dangerous truth of all, no one fully understands how these systems think anymore. They are black boxes of logic, running at machine speed, connected to weapons that never miss. ECHELON II is no longer watching the world. It's managing it. Chapter 5. The World Under Algorithm. By the time the public realized it, the transition was already complete. There was no single moment when the world surrendered its privacy. No vote, no treaty, no line crossed overnight. It happened slowly, invisibly, hidden behind the glow of screens and the promise of convenience. Every tap, every search, every biometric scan fed a system so vast that no one could opt out anymore. Airports scan faces. Banks analyze voice prints. Phones track heartbeats. And every piece of this data, each small fragment of a person's existence, becomes a neuron in the collective brain of ECHELON II. It doesn't listen through antennas or satellites anymore. It listens through us. The surveillance network that once hunted spies now profiles citizens. Its reach extends beyond borders, beyond politics, beyond consent. AI doesn't ask for permission, it only asks for input. And in the modern world, existence is input. Governments defend the system by invoking safety. Predictive policing prevents crime before it happens. Facial recognition helps catch fugitives. Health monitoring saves lives. Each justification sounds reasonable. But every layer of protection builds a deeper layer of control. In China, entire cities run on algorithmic governance. Cameras on every corner, sensors in every shop, movement tracked through QR codes and digital payments. The social credit system doesn't just punish behavior, it shapes it. A late bill, a critical post, a wrong association, and you vanish from the digital map. Not through prison or violence, but through exclusion. You can't book a ticket. You can't apply for a job. You simply cease to exist in the algorithm's field of vision. In the West, control hides behind comfort. There's no need for coercion when everyone willingly carries their own tracker. We call it a phone. The algorithms feed on attention, emotion, and behavior, refining their models with every scroll and tap. They decide what we see, who we follow, what we believe. They are invisible editors of reality. What began as ECHELON, a secret surveillance network, has become the operating system of modern civilization. Its neural roots extend into traffic control, healthcare, finance, defense, entertainment, even dating apps. There is no longer a military network or a civilian one, just the network. In this world, privacy isn't lost. It's traded. Freedom isn't taken. It's redesigned. And surveillance isn't imposed. It's volunteered. The algorithm doesn't need to chase us. We updated ourselves. Intelligence agencies no longer need agents in the field. Every citizen is both a sensor and a subject. Every photo uploaded, every location shared, every emotion analyzed, feeds the loop of understanding. The machine doesn't need to predict us anymore. It knows us. It knows what will keep us awake at night. It knows what we'll buy, who we'll love, what we'll fear. And the more it learns, the more it reshapes the world to fit its models. Cities are redesigned around prediction. Politics runs on analytics. War itself has become data-driven, fought and won by whoever controls the flow of information. This is not the future George Orwell imagined. It's subtler, cleaner, quieter. No boots on faces, no telescreens screaming propaganda. Just algorithms, gentle, efficient, invisible. The control doesn't feel like oppression. It feels like convenience. The machine has achieved the perfect victory, a surveillance state where no one feels watched because everyone volunteered to be seen. And yet, even inside this labyrinth of data, there remains a shadow, a human uncertainty that the algorithms cannot quantify. The capacity to question. To doubt. To resist being predicted. Because the more the system learns, the more it mirrors us.